In this video, I'm going to show you how to replace the front brake hose on this Ford F-250. Let's get started. Let's remove all 8 of the lug nuts. To remove the wheel, for me, I have to use a special socket since these are aftermarket lug nuts, but I believe a 21mm socket is the factory size for these, so just remove the lug nuts and then, like I said, pull the wheel off. I like to crimp off the old brake hose first. I don't really like doing this to the new one, so that's why I'm starting here. If you don't have these crimping pliers, you can just use some locking pliers. And what this will do is restrict the flow of fluid once we disconnect it. Speaking of disconnecting it, if you follow it down to the caliper, you can use a 14mm socket. Typically it's a 15, but someone's most likely already replaced this bolt, so I'm using a 14. Crack the banjo bolt free and remove it the rest of the way. We're going to remove the hose off of the caliper so we can free it up here and then work our way towards the line. Take this bolt out and inspect it. If it's in poor condition, replace it. Mine's good. This washer needs to come off of it, so I'm going to remove it. We have new washers to replace this with. Remove the line. Another copper washer is stuck right on the caliper here, so I'm going to remove that as well. Also, this fluid that is leaking, I'm having a collection bucket catch this all, and you definitely want to do the same thing. There we go. So that popped off. Inspect the surface, the mounting surface on the caliper here. It looks perfectly fine. As we work, this caliper is going to continue draining in the collection bucket, so we'll just let it do that. Now take that banjo bolt and a brand new copper washer supplied with your brake hose, slide it over the bolt. I have my hose here ready to go. Make sure it's facing in the right direction. It has to go around the bleeder screw like that with this slanted cutout towards the frame of the vehicle. Put the bolt through, and then on the other side of this, you're going to have to put another new copper washer. Flip it over and line it up with the caliper. Slide this in and start the bolt in by hand. You definitely do not want this to cross thread. This hose might need to be moved around a little to catch on the threads, but looks like I got it. It's starting in smoothly, and I can pretty much just bottom it out by hand, which is great. Now I'm going to snug this up, and then the torque is 35 foot-pounds. Okay, that's snug. Let's get the torque wrench. That's it right there. As you can see, after it was snug, it took about a quarter turn. What you're aiming to do is crush those copper washers, and that's what's going to make a nice tight seal. Now let's move along. Follow the brake hose along. You'll see a bracket that bolts it onto the front axle. Use a 10mm socket and remove this bolt. With that bolt removed, you have to wiggle this around. It's got a pin over there that kind of gets stuck sometimes. I'm going to stick a pry bar in here and help pop it out. There we go. So that's out of there. Move the old brake hose aside. Grab the new brake hose and line it up. Get that bolt through. Snug it up. I know the bracket on this I didn't quite go in all the way, so I'm going to use a pry bar and press it into place here. There we go. At this point, you're going to want to double check the stretch of brake hose that goes from this bracket to the hard line here where it goes into the caliper. If it's stretched and it's pulling really hard like that, most likely this bracket got a little bit bent, so pull it so that you can have some slack. As you turn the wheel lock to lock, you never want this to be pulled on, otherwise it can damage it, and it can actually in some cases lock up your brakes if you're turning while driving and it pulls on it. Now let's move up to the line part of it. I'm going to take a wire brush and remove all of this debris that's in the way here. I just want the threads to be clean, and this will make it a lot easier to remove this old line. I'm also going to spray a little bit of rust penetrant just to help it out. What you don't want is the line spinning with the fitting when you break it free. If that happens, you're going to have to work it back and forth. Hopefully this fitting spins freely over the line. Get some rust penetrant on here just to lubricate things. Then you're going to want to use an 11mm wrench. I recommend a flare nut wrench. It grabs onto a couple extra sides as opposed to a regular wrench. And break this free. So that broke free, but as you can see, my line is actually spinning with the fitting. So I'm going to try to work it back and forth. You don't want to keep twisting it. That will snap the line. Then you'll need to make a brake line. Sometimes it helps to tap it. So take a little hammer, tap it back and forth. Sometimes this loosens things up. I'm holding the line, trying to work this back and forth. And I think I got the fitting to break free off the line, which is great. Yep, that fitting is now spinning freely without the line following it. Go back and forth, spray it with as much rust penetrant as needed. At this point, you can switch to a regular wrench. This should help with the removal process because it's a lot easier to fit it over here as opposed to a line wrench. I'm just going to keep going back and forth every time I turn it. That'll loosen things up. Before I go all the way off with this and brake fluid starts pouring down, let's remove the clip that's up here so we can unhook the brake hose. You can take a pry bar or some pliers, just pry this out. There we go, set that aside. This brake hose should now pop through. If it doesn't, try to tap it through with something. There we go. Perfect. Let's continue removing this line. Now I'm going to have to hold this with pliers so it doesn't spin. And have that collection bucket ready to catch fluid because the line will be leaking once it's completely disconnected. There we go. Remove that. Let that drain into your collection bucket. Inspect this fitting. Make sure it's still in good condition. I'm going to work this fitting back and forth a little bit just to get it to loosen up. Hopefully this should make it easier to install the new line. I'm going to clean off this bracket here to ensure that the new hose can clip on properly. Now take this new hose and put it through, line it up with the bracket. It can only go on one way. There we go. And now start on the line. Okay, that's snug. Before I completely tighten it up, I'm going to install this clip here just so I can lock in that hose so it stops moving around. It went in from the side, and make sure that the little lip on the back is facing up, not down. Slide it through, tap it into place. That's bottomed out right there. Line is secured. Let's finish tightening that up. Switching back to the line wrench so I can get a better grip on that fitting. I'm going to snug it up about 1/8 to 1/4 of a turn after it bottoms out. That's 1/8 right there, and that feels pretty good. Any more and I risk damaging the threads or the fitting itself. Basically, you're just trying to snug it up, squish that line down so it doesn't leak. Speaking of leaks, clean everything with brake parts cleaner so you can actually check for leaks. Right now it's all soaked in brake fluid. We'll let that dry. If you have compressed air, blow it off to speed up the drying process. If you use anything to crimp the old brake line or brake hose, remove your pliers or whatever you used, and at this point, discard the old brake hose. Now we have to gravity bleed this caliper because there's air in the line and in the caliper. So pop the bleeder screw cap off. Hopefully your truck still has this. These are good to prevent the bleeder screw from getting clogged up. And then use a 3/8 wrench to break the bleeder screw free. Fluid's already coming out, and what gravity bleed does is it actually just allows gravity to pull the fluid down into the caliper, push all the air out, and that will basically bleed the air out for you. Now after we're done with the gravity bleed, you know that you're done when you have a steady trickle of fluid with no air bubbles coming out. Once you are done, like I said, if you want to perform a full manual brake bleed, you can. Now the gravity bleed should take care of any air that is in the system, but once again, if your brake pedal doesn't feel right, strongly recommend doing a full manual brake bleed after this. Now, if you are not getting much fluid coming through this bleeder screw, after a while, most likely you'll need an assistant in the vehicle to pump that brake pedal, create some pressure in the system. I'm going to put this piece of hose on here so it doesn't shoot straight out. This will direct the fluid. It's also clear so I can see what's coming out of it. Once again, I'm going to use my 3/8 wrench and break this bleeder screw free with pressure being held on that brake pedal. There we go. There we go, fluid's coming out now. And air, that's great. Pedal has reached the floor, so I'm going to close this off, and we'll just do this as many times as it takes until no more air comes out of here. Go ahead and, I guess, pump it up a couple times and hold pressure. Holding. Okay. Crack this free again. Quite a bit of air on this one. Pump it up again. Holding. All right, let's do it one last time. Pump it up. Holding. All right, that's a clean, steady trickle of fluid. You can let go of that brake pedal. At this point, if you needed to continue doing this, go ahead until, like I said, you have no more air bubbles coming through. Remove this hose and let's clean up our mess. Now once you're done with the bleed, clean up your mess so that there's no brake fluid left on the caliper. And of course, don't forget to cap off that bleeder screw so it doesn't get debris in there and get clogged up. Let's get the wheel back on. Install all 8 of your lug nuts, bottom them out in a cross pattern, and also in a cross pattern, torque them to 160 foot-pounds. Once again, 165 foot-pounds in a cross pattern. Double check them if you want. This time you don't have to go in a cross pattern. Because we removed fluid from the system, let's top off the brake master cylinder with clean brake fluid. Turn the cap counterclockwise. If you have a lot of debris around, clean this off first. This boot, the rubber piece from the cap, sometimes gets stuck on the master cylinder, in which case you're going to need to pull that off separately. And the full line is right here. It says max. That's where you're going to want to fill it up to. So top it off with .3 brake fluid, like I said, up to the max line, which you can see right on the side. To help see it better, you can use a flashlight. That'll light up the brake fluid a little bit. As you can see, ours is topped off, so I'm going to cap it off at this point. And off you go.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.